The Roman Empire didn't die in a single night. It collapsed in slow motion, over centuries. But when it finally fell, it left scars that the West still carries. Imagine this. In the year 410 AD, Rome, the Eternal City, is burning. For the first time in 800 years, foreign soldiers march through its gates. The Visigoths loot the temples, tear through marble palaces, and drag Roman citizens into slavery. For the people of the ancient world, it felt like the end of civilization itself. The greatest empire in history had fallen, and no one knew what would rise from its ashes. The fall of Rome wasn't just the collapse of an empire, it was the collapse of an idea. Rome built the foundations of Western law, government, religion, and identity. When it crumbled, the West lost not only power, but purpose. And today, nearly 1,600 years later, echoes of that collapse still shape our world. From the way nations fear decline, to how politicians promise to restore greatness, to how entire cultures measure themselves against a golden past. The story of Rome's fall is not ancient history. It's a mirror, showing the fragility of every civilization that believes it can never end. Rome's rise to glory began with stability. Under Augustus, the empire stretched from Britain to Egypt, controlling 60 million people. Roads, aqueducts, and armies tied the world together. For 2 centuries, the Pax Romana, peace reigned. But beneath the marble, cracks were already forming. Rome's success created dependency. Wealth flowed from conquered lands, not innovation. Citizens became spectators. Slaves and mercenaries did the real work. The empire looked unstoppable, but it was already addicted to expansion. And once the conquering stopped, the decline began. It started with bad leadership and ended in chaos. After Emperor Marcus Aurelius died, Rome entered a nightmare. In 50 years, 26 emperors took the throne, most killed by their own soldiers. Civil wars, assassinations, inflation, plagues, and invasions tore the empire apart. The economy collapsed. Coins were devalued, frontiers were breached, even Rome's faith in itself began to crumble. The empire that once brought order to the world became its own worst enemy, divided, unstable, and broke. When Diocletian took power, he tried to save the empire with bureaucracy. He split Rome in 2, an Eastern and Western empire. Each had its own emperor and capital. The idea worked, for a while. The East, centered in Byzantium, grew rich. The West, centered in Rome, grew poor. And though Diocletian imposed order through fear, the rot remained. Then came Constantine. He legalized Christianity, founded a new capital, Constantinople, and tied Rome's fate to faith. The empire survived, but changed forever. Rome was no longer a city of gods and senators. It was a city of bishops and emperors. A Christian empire rose, but the old Roman world was fading. In 376 AD, desperate refugees arrived at the empire's border, the Goths. They were fleeing a terrifying new enemy, the Huns. Rome agreed to let them in, but failed to feed them. Starving and betrayed, the Goths rebelled. In 378 AD, at the Battle of Adrianople, they annihilated a Roman army and killed Emperor Valens. Rome had lost more than a battle. It had lost its invincibility. By 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. Alaric, king of the Visigoths, marched into Rome itself. The Eternal City was plundered. The world gasped. St. Jerome wrote, "If Rome can perish, what can be safe?" The empire was dying, but not yet dead. In its final decades, the Western Empire became a ghost. Emperors ruled only in name. Real power lay in generals, warlords, and foreign mercenaries. The Roman army was no longer Roman. In 476 AD, a Germanic general named Odoacer deposed the last emperor, Romulus Augustulus. He didn't burn Rome. He simply ended the illusion. The Roman Empire, the idea that one law, one army, one civilization could rule the world, was over. But the Eastern Empire, Byzantium, survived for another 1,000 years. The light of Rome flickered, but never fully went out. Behind every fall of empire are real lives, not just emperors and generals, but people. Letters from the late empire reveal fear and confusion. Farmers wrote about heavy taxes they couldn't pay. Merchants complained of roads too dangerous to travel. Soldiers begged for food, not gold. In one letter from a Roman official, he pleads, "The treasury is empty, the soldiers unpaid, the people starving. Yet the emperor demands games." The historian Ammianus Marcellinus described Rome's citizens as dazzled by luxury, deaf to danger. They still crowded the amphitheaters, cheering for spectacles, while the empire crumbled around them. Ordinary Romans felt the collapse long before historians did. Their children were taken for wars they couldn't win. Their homes were burned in raids. Their gods replaced by a faith they barely understood. The fall of Rome wasn't just political, it was deeply human. It was the story of people watching their world disappear. Textbooks often say Rome fell because of barbarians, but that's only part of the truth. The barbarians didn't destroy Rome. Rome destroyed itself. Corruption, inequality, overexpansion, and political decay made it weak long before the invasions began. Another myth? That the fall was sudden. In reality, the empire didn't collapse. It transformed. Roman law, language, and culture survived in the Catholic Church, in Europe's kingdoms, and in the very languages we speak: English, French, Spanish, Italian. And the economy? For centuries after the fall, Roman coins still circulated. Roman roads still carried armies. Roman ideas of power still shaped kings. Even the so-called Dark Ages weren't truly dark. They were the dim light of a civilization changing form. The fall of Rome wasn't an end. It was a metamorphosis. Rome's collapse didn't just reshape Europe. It reshaped the entire Western mind. The fear of decline, the obsession with greatness, the rise of religion as a stabilizing force. These are Roman legacies. Every great power since, from Britain to the United States, has measured itself against Rome. We build monuments like theirs. We borrow their architecture, their senate, even their language. Washington, D.C. looks more like ancient Rome than medieval London. But Rome's fall is also a warning written into our culture. When citizens lose trust in government, when the rich grow richer and the poor despair, when military power replaces civic virtue, the cycle repeats. Rome shows us that civilization doesn't collapse from outside. It decays from within. And even today, historians, politicians, and thinkers invoke Rome to explain the modern world's struggles, from empires abroad to polarization at home. The West still lives in Rome's shadow, proud of its inheritance, haunted by its mistakes. The fall of Rome teaches a truth that every generation forgets. No empire, no matter how mighty, lasts forever. It doesn't end in one cataclysmic moment. It fades as people stop believing in what once made them strong. Rome wasn't conquered by swords alone. It was conquered by apathy, corruption, and the illusion of endless power. But from its ruins, something new was born. The idea that history can be reborn, rebuilt, reimagined, that even when greatness falls, its lessons endure. Rome's empire ended 1,500 years ago, but its story, the dream of unity, the fear of decline, the hope of rebirth, still lives in us all, because Rome never truly died. It just became us.